Welcome back to the Home Centered Life podcast. So, we're going to keep it pretty short and sweet today because there's a few things happening we've alluded to recently. So, we are moving in literally 14 days from the date of this recording. And so, after the kids went down, I was ready to just fall asleep on the floor because we're so tired. But we're showing up, and Michael was like, let's do this episode that we've been talking about doing for a while. So maybe some of you will love this, but we're going to keep it short and sweet either way. We're going to talk about the difference between raising chickens and raising turkeys, and kind of 3 pros from our perspective of why we actually prefer raising turkeys. We can do a whole nother episode on like meat birds, like meat chickens, but this will be like why we love turkeys basically.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are new to homesteading or have never homesteaded in the like terms you think of, it might sound crazy to even be considering raising your own meat. We have only ever done birds. We have not yet done anything beyond that.
Right.
But at the new property, we'll be doing beef cows and looking at sheep and maybe pigs. So, for us, getting in with chickens was like a really good starting point. But we also really love turkeys. So we want to talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah. Top 3 reasons you should do turkeys, not chickens.
Yes.
Yes, we've done, hundreds and hundreds of chickens because that's what you do. And then a couple dozen turkeys. But that's kind of one of the things we'll talk about is the work to reward ratio.
Yeah.
But the number one thing that we were surprised by was how much more we like their personality, their disposition. And if you have raised chickens for meat, then you know that Justin Rhodes calls them sea monsters. They are monsters. And unless you're careful with feeding them like really early, first thing in the morning, by the time you get out there, I don't know if you have other things on your schedule and maybe 3 kids or something. By the time you get out there and put their trough in the tractor, they'll just peck your hand.
Yeah.
Because they're monsters. So I started wearing a glove because I wasn't getting out there early enough when I dropped it in there because they just go after you. So meat chickens are aggressive. They're bullies. They fight over the food.
For sure.
And turkeys are sweet and mellow and they can't move all that fast. And they make cute, fun noises, and meat chickens are just noisy, obnoxious. And
in our opinion,
yeah. I know we'll still do meat chickens, but disposition wise, be like turkeys, hands down, over meat chickens.
So tell people a little bit about if they're new to this. They're just like, what are you even talking about? Can you tell them about the chicken breed when you say meat chickens, what we've done,
Sure.
and sort of how we got into that versus, and then like our journey to doing that versus turkeys.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, at the broadest level, when you live a more home-centered life, raising more and more of your own food and your own meat is way more doable.
Totally.
We never did this before we lived on this property. I don't think we would have considered it even possible if we had not been living a more home-centered life. So that's a huge part of why it's doable. It's also a huge part of why we're talking about it on this podcast. But when you do meat chickens, the most common approach is to order Cornish cross chicks from a hatchery, and they arrive, within a day or two of hatching. And the first 3 weeks they're in a brooder, and then about 5 weeks they're out on hopefully fresh grass every day. So the turnaround time is 8 weeks, but it's a pretty intense 8 weeks.
It is. Yeah.
Turkeys take way longer, but that sort of elongated time frame is also part of the mellowness of the process. So
yeah, I'm gonna totally interject here because my mind's like going back because we didn't do chickens at all this year. Besides we had our layers, but we only did turkeys because I had our 3rd baby in June. And so we were like, we were smart enough to realize don't try to do chicken babies and person baby
yeah
at the same time. But when you were saying that,
Yeah.
just for, again, to fill in the blanks for some people. So Cornish cross are like 8 weeks. They're ready to go. So that is nice, but it's also really intense. Like you said, like by 3 weeks, they basically need to go outside because they start just pooping so much in like the brooder that it stinks so bad. And then you get them outside. And here's the other interesting thing. So Cornish cross are literally bred to gain meat and weight super, super fast. So if you don't butcher them in that 8 to maybe 9 week time frame, they actually will start dying. They'll either have heart attacks or like be unable to move. So I'm just like saying that for people because when you say like turkeys are more flexible and there's more peace in there, yes, their timeline is 16 weeks. But to be honest, we had how many? We got 15 turkeys this summer, and you just finished processing the last 2 this week, and we got them in. So we're recording in January. I'm trying to remember, but they were like way older,
Yeah,
but
we
they
got them
didn't die.
in
That's
August.
the
Yeah.
thing. We
Yeah.
were
So
considering just keeping them as pets
both,
because they were
yeah,
just like around for so
their
long.
their disposition, but also like the experience of raising them and butchering them, everything is so much more relaxed, so much more
Yeah.
chill. It's 16 weeks, not 8 weeks.
Yeah.
If you don't get to butchering them, they're not just going to
I
die,
know.
right? And Cornish cross, just for the record, they're not genetically modified or anything. They're just bred very intentionally. It's a cross of a cross of a cross of a cross. Every
Yes.
hatchery has their own way of doing it, and they all keep it a hyper locked secret. But so there's nothing unnatural per se, but they've been bred and then bred and then bred to yield a sea monster that eats and gains meat really fast.
It has like
Which
the really heavy breasts,
does
which
it?
means they can't really
It's
move
it's
around.
the chicken that everybody expects to see in the
Yeah,
grocery store when
totally.
you butcher a Cornish cross chicken. You're like, oh, that's what I see in the grocery
Yeah,
store.
for sure.
If you do a different breed, like a Freedom Ranger or something like that, or if you butcher one of your laying chickens, you'd be like, what in the world is that
Yeah.
thing? It does not look like chicken, sort of ironically. But turkeys, the whole experience is way more chill. I think every batch of meat chickens we've done, at some point I've like lost my temper.
Oh, yeah, totally.
At least once, if not
I'm not
multiple
throwing you
times.
under the bus, but I'm
No, I
like, yeah,
can't.
that's true.
I've blocked it out of my mind. But there's almost always a moment or two or 5 or 10 where I'm like, these monsters. and
Yeah. Well,
and part of that is the learning curve, but it's a really intense experience because
it is.
usually with the tractor that we have, you put 75 of them in one tractor.
Yeah.
It's a big tractor,
Yeah.
but that, like, the volume and the intensity and everything's just so raw with meat
Hmm.
chickens, Cornish cross, of course. Whereas turkeys, it's like you walk past and they just kind of follow you until they get to the end of their fence, and then you walk past again and they follow you again and make noises that are
Cute
so
little
cute.
noises.
Yeah. So from our perspective, the number one reason we like raising turkeys over chickens, at least Cornish cross, is the disposition.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You just reminded me.
Great.
We like to say that turkeys are like little dogs.
Oh yeah.
They're so fun. So just for those of you that think that this one's fun,
Yeah.
they really are like little dogs. And I mean, they're not perfect. Obviously, they have their issues, but in general, they are just really fun.
Yeah. I mean, you could slice it both ways. By the time it's time to butcher meat chickens, you're like, thank goodness. And when you're butchering turkeys, it's like,
Oh,
oh.
yeah. I know it can be a little harder.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is number 1. What's number 2?
The work to reward ratio, it is almost the same amount of work to process a turkey as it is to process one chicken, one turkey, one chicken, but it can be upwards of 5 times the amount of meat. The equipment that you buy to process a chicken won't work for a turkey. So instead of the metal cones that we got for our chickens, we had to put a hole in a 5-gallon bucket and mount that to a tree. But then after that, it was the same amount of work. The defeather didn't work, but turkeys are really easy to defeather by hand. I would never do that with a chicken. Not certainly not 75 chickens. I would never defeather them by hand. But because of the way turkeys are, their feathers are huge, and so you can actually defeather them by hand. And then the rest of the evisceration and processing is the exact same. Everything's just bigger, so it's way easier to get in there and take out the innards. It's way easier to separate out the organ meat that you want to save. Everything is easier, and you get more for basically the same amount of work. So raising them is easier and more chill. and processing them is the same amount of work, but for 5 times the reward.
Yeah. So just to again highlight, I would say an average, well, okay, so also to say this for the again, those of you that are brand new to this, when you order meat chickens or any type of bird, you can get them unsexed or male or female, basically. So we learned with meat chickens, get the boys because they're bigger. So, a male Cornish cross, when they're processed and, fully like in the freezer, we're averaging close to 5 and upwards of maybe 7 pounds. Those are for males. Girls could be like 3 to maybe 5 pounds of meat. So that's like after 8 weeks, you're getting 3 to 5 pounds for girls or 5 to 7-ish pounds for boys. But these turkeys, male and female, probably, I mean, the one we had for Thanksgiving was 23 pounds of meat. I mean, there's bones in there. Yeah, I'm considering there's bones
It's
in both, but
the whole
yeah,
thing, the whole
yeah,
carcass. Yeah.
23 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did this year was we actually decided to get a little meat grinder for our KitchenAid
Mm-hmm.
and just a little attachment. It was like $60, right? And just put it on there. You have to cut the meat away from the bone, but then you just fed it through. And we have a bunch of ground turkey meat because that is one slight con is having a giant roast turkey every month for dinner is kind of a lot, And people, I mean, maybe if we shifted our mindset, we could do that more often, but having the like Thanksgiving meal and then basically just transitioning everything else into ground turkey is the goal because then it becomes super versatile. And again, you could kind of do that with ground chicken, but I mean, it's way more work and it would be harder to get those little pieces off. And then the cool thing too for us is like, even if we didn't get 100% of the meat off, we just gave it to the dogs. And so it's that full cycle. Nothing's going to waste. Our dogs are still eating turkey feathers. I don't know why. There's like
I don't
still a
understand
bucket
that.
out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like a little bit of meat at the end. But, anyway, so work to reward ratio is, I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty huge.
Yeah. And if you're into bone broth,
Yeah,
the number of
totally.
batches of bone broth you can make from one turkey versus one chicken, you get
Yeah,
like one batch of bone broth,
totally.
if that. But
Yeah,
with the turkey, multiple batches,
yeah,
easy because there's so much more there.
yeah,
And it is actually worth it. Again, sort of work to reward ratio. It's actually worth it to break it down and grind it. I would not do that with chickens. That would be kind of a waste of time. And because turkeys are so often associated with Thanksgiving, we tend to think of preparing them only the one way. But if you broke down the carcass into smaller, half a carcass or a quarter of a carcass, that would end up being about the size of a chicken. So, what are all the ways you could make chicken? There's a million, and turkey is
yeah,
no different.
totally.
So, we tend not to think of it that way because it's intact, it's so big, but you could half it or quarter it, mix it up. So, the third and final reason we think turkeys are worth considering is because there are states in which, if you want to raise and sell your meat birds, there are strict laws around how many you can do. And it's worth considering, especially if you live. So we live in Wisconsin, and the state of Wisconsin has only recognized one of the two federal exemptions. And there's one federal exemption for a maximum of 1,000 birds, and there's a second federal exemption for 20,000 birds, but Wisconsin doesn't recognize the 20,000 one.
Mm.
So we're only legally allowed to raise 1,000 meat birds and sell them direct to consumer. Other states like Washington, Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, Texas, Georgia, they have that same or similar situation. And so if you can only raise and sell 1,000 meat birds, do turkeys because again, you're going to get 5 times more, upwards of 5 times more meat out of the deal. You're not going to be selling as many whole turkeys, but the real value add for chickens and turkeys is to break it down and sell it by the
Mm-hmm.
drumstick, by the breast anyway. So it's worth considering from a business standpoint if that's something you want to have. If home centered life is not just homesteading, it's a home based business for you that
Hmm.
includes meat birds, it could be worth looking into. no, this does not constitute legal advice. Talk to a lawyer. Talk to the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund.
Oh
Talk to those
yeah,
people,
totally.
right? Don't take
Yeah.
our word for it. But just be thinking, like, if you can only raise 1,000, why
Mm.
not make it turkeys
Mm-hmm.
instead of chickens?
Yeah.
Partially, and also because chickens are more common, so it's a little more difficult to stand out with. All we do is chicken, okay, and we
Mm-hmm.
can only do 1,000. Good luck
Yeah.
building a business off of that.
Yeah.
But if all you do is turkeys and you do 1,000 of those, you actually could have something worth. So just something to consider if you are looking to do any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think after this last summer, we've talked about just raising enough chickens just for our family because it is nice to have that versatility and options. But then, selling turkeys if, we want to move forward with selling some meat. And we've just done that again, direct to consumer, just kind of Facebook messaging or sharing with people what we're doing. Sometimes people just pick, oh, can I buy a turkey from you or whatever. But yeah, just we'll, like you said earlier, we'll continue to do chickens, but doing it maybe at a smaller number, a smaller scale versus, especially in the season of life we're in. I would say I think last summer we did 3 rounds of 75. So that was almost 225, and it was a lot. Yeah. So every year, again, it's all about learning and growing and trying things out. And, you think one thing will work and then you realize it was a terrible idea. Um, like right now, the one thing that I will say about turkeys is they do take up a lot of space. Like we haven't finished grinding the meat. So right now there's like whole carcasses. So you need the chest freezer space. If the meat's ground, it's different, but
Yeah, but if
we
we
had to.
had needed to have stored 75 chickens, that would have been even more space.
Yeah, true. That's true.
So either way, you're going to want some chest freezers.
Chest freezers.
Because I don't know, we
Definitely
might
chest
have 5
freezers.
in the basement. I'm not sure. Don't worry about it.
Maybe 5. Yeah.
We literally got into a chest freezer conversation at church the other day with somebody.
It's true. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
That could be like, well, here's a bonus tip for you
We
guys.
should do an episode on chest
I know. No. No. But here's a bonus tip. So here's what we were telling the person at church. We bought the most gigantic chest freezer.
The biggest one we could find.
Yeah, literally the biggest. We thought it was
winning.
A great idea. It took up a whole wall. It was like
able to be moved by one person.
Yeah. So heavy. Yeah, just a monster. And we thought, wow, this is great.
We're so hardcore.
And then what happens is it breaks and it's more expensive to fix it than it is to just replace it. So then it was broken and then it just sat in our basement for like a year until we finally hired some people to come and get it because we couldn't even get it out ourselves. So what we did, so again, I think this is helpful bonus though, if you're thinking through these things. What we ended up doing is we have 5 smaller, they're only 7 cubic units. And so you can literally, if you empty one out, just unplug it. Or have like, this one's for this kind of meat. This one's for, whatever. You kind of store it based on thing. Ours are not super organized right now, but that was way, it's only a little less than $200 per one versus that first one was like $1,500, maybe more. And it's probably more, right?
Was it that much?
I think so.
Well,
but
yeah.
All that to say, we learned that lesson again the hard way.
Yeah. Well, and so like, I can't remember what the number was, but I think all 5 of our chest freezers now, the small ones, let's just say it was the same, just for the sake of the exercise. If you spend $1,000 and get 5 small ones, or $1,000 and get 1 giant one, if the giant one breaks, you've lost 100% of your freezer capacity. If a small one breaks, we've only lost 20% of our freezer capacity.
Exactly, yeah.
And if we don't need one of them, like you said, unplug it. Also, the giant ones are impossible to keep organized.
Yeah,
and 5 small ones, you can separate them by meat type or whatever. So don't get a giant chest freezer.
Yeah.
Get a bunch of small ones. There you go.
That's bonus. Yeah. Subscribe to our channel just because we talk about chest freezers.
In the intro, we should be like, we're going to be talking about turkeys, but stay till the end because we have a bonus about chest freezers.
You are welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our conversation around the top 3 reasons you should raise turkeys instead of chickens.
We hope you found it both helpful and so much for joining us as we seek to live a more home centered life.